Welcome to Module 4 of our Intermediate Accounting class. This is the first module to me that it really starts to feel like intermediate accounting. And by that, I mean things get a little tricky and quirky. It's like intro accounting, but we turn up the difficulty level just a little bit here. So this is all about the income statement, reporting a company's financial performance, but it's more complicated than intro. Of course, we remember in our intro, it's like revenues minus expenses equals net income. Well, we're still doing the same thing, but there's just more quirks and features to an intermediate level income statement. And let me introduce it to you. Here's the one we're going to kind of go over, and I'm going to go through each of these lines, and you can see, like, you know, it's pretty substantial, and this is a very much a summarized one, but let's go through it, and you'll see when we get about halfway down the page, some complications start to get lumped in. But let's begin. So we start with a 3-line title, name of the company, income statement, also can be called statement of operations or statement of financial performance. I've seen that as well for the year ended December 31st, 2031. You can see the first line there, sales, net. Now, what is it net of? Sales minus any discounts, minus any returns or allowances equals net sales. But I'll start with net sales, $1 million. Sales minus COGS, cost of goods sold, is our gross profit. Being on the board of a retail store, we obsess over this gross profit number, and we obsess over it not only as the $700,000 amount, we also obsess over it as a percentage, where we say, oh, what's our margins? And our margins here, our gross profit margin is 70%, and that's just 700,000 divided by the net sales of $1 million. So that's a number that most people that sell stuff will be interested in knowing, so it's worth you knowing. Then we get to our operating expenses, and I've really shortened this. Often we'll list not just selling expenses and administrative expenses, we'll list out like different types of selling expenses. Oh, what's our advertising expense? What's our salespeople's salaries? Our depreciation of sales-related equipment? Our shipping costs? You know, these would all be selling expenses. Admin expenses. What's the president's salary and rent on the offices and all that stuff? Those are administrative expenses. Now, I've put them all here on one line, but of course, we could expect this to be multiple lines. Definitely, that's a very reasonable thing to have happen. I've summed it up and said our selling's 100, our admin's 120, our total is 220, and of course listing them on the left and totaling them on the right, that sort of format choice continues from our intro class. I always want to caution students to like follow along with however it's being formatted in your course, because different profs will have different formatting conventions. I try to follow what the textbook does pretty closely, but even then I have my own little quirks of formatting. So be careful to follow along with how it's done in your class. Okay, sales minus COGS is gross profit minus operating expenses is operating income, a key number, income generated by the day-to-day business, whatever we're doing. If we're Walmart, we're in the business of selling products, right? Selling inventory at a markup. That's what we're up to, and this is how much we've made in operating income. Our day-to-day business has generated $480,000. What are the other things? Those are the non-day-to-day things that generate revenues and expenses. So what types of things? Well, buying and selling equipment. You know, Walmart can sell a big piece of land. It's not in the land sales business, but it can sell land at a gain or at a loss, and that would be categorized as other. Interest as well. Financing related activities tend to be classed as other. And in fact, I'm expecting in the not too distant future, we're not going to call this stuff other. We're going to call it investing and financing, sort of like a cash flow statement from our intro financial accounting. But for now, most textbooks still call it other, so I will continue to call it other. But here's our others. We got other revenue, so interest and gain, 40. So 480 is our operating income. Other revenues and gains add to it, so 480 plus 40 is 520, and other expenses deduct from it, so 520 minus, we had $70,000 in other expenses, brings us down to 450. That brings us to our income before tax. Our income tax here was $90,000, which is, I guess, 20% tax rate, fair enough. The next line down, if you took intro accounting to me, you already know what I'm going to say. You think I'm going to say net income, and that's what we would do an intro class, but this class has more complexity. Some companies will have to report discontinued operations, and we'll discuss what those are. And so rather than net income, this is called income from continuing operations. So let's say I'll give an example of Target, which is a competitor of Walmart. If you're not from North America, it's just a retail department store that competes with Walmart. Target, about 10 years ago, opened up like over 100 stores in Canada. And I'm from Canada, and I shopped at Target. I thought it was a nice store. And Target decided, you know what, our Canadian experiment here didn't work. We are getting out of Canada. And so they had discontinued operations in Canada. It was a substantial part of their business. It wasn't one store they decided to close. They closed 100 and some odd stores. I'm saying 120. It might not be 120, but it was over 100, I think, Canadian stores all closed. They just said, we're not doing that anymore. Perfect opportunity to account for it as a discontinued operation. And what does that mean? That means we want to separate out the part of the business, significant part of the business, that is stopping. And why do I want to separate that out? Well, it's for the user. The user of the financial statement is trying to make plans for the future, right? They're projecting, if they're a finance person, they're projecting the future cash flows of the business. Well, if I am getting rid of Canada, but Canada still, the Canadian Target stores are still on my income statement, I want to tell shareholders, those aren't going to be part of my future earnings. You shouldn't consider those, right? And so we want to almost quarantine out that discontinued part of the business, and that's what this is all about. And so you can see they've taken out the loss from operation. Typically when you're discontinuing something, it's not a money maker, so it's loss from operations of our discontinued operation. So we're operating the Canadian businesses, we're starting to wind them down, and this is how much they lost just from operating. And also, this is how much we lost selling off their assets, right? We got to get rid of their assets. There's a lot of liquidation that goes on. So this is the loss on disposal. And you'll notice a key here is when you're doing discontinued operations, you do it all net of tax. The idea here being for the loss from operations, we actually lost $200K in our Canadian, in this example, operations. 20% tax rate, same as up above, means $40K of tax. Now, what does that mean? Well, if I lose $200,000, it reduces my tax bill by 40 grand. That's one of the few benefits of losing money, is it reduces your taxes. Not that you want that to happen, you don't, but you lose 200 grand, your taxes go down by $40,000, and therefore it only cost you 160. That's how much the loss from operations was. You actually lost 200, but because it saved you on taxes, the net loss is 160. And same with the loss on disposal. So overall, in this thing we decided to stop doing, we lost 280 grand. There's the total on the right. So my day-to-day business, let's just say it's Target USA, was generating 360 grand in profit. Target Canada, operating it and then getting rid of it, is costing me 280, and therefore my net income is 80. 360 minus 280 is 80. And the idea here is you're sort of saying, okay, net income's an important number, and shareholders are going to care about the net income of the company, but you can say, like, this 280, we don't expect, if you're operating this business, we don't expect to be losing 280 every year on our Canadian operations because they don't exist anymore, right? And so that's why you sort of quarantine or separate out the discontinued operation. So that's the first new concept in our intermediate income statement. So anyway, that brings us down to net income. You might think we're done. There's still two more quirks to add to it. Most times in intermediate accounting, you will be asked to do an earnings per share calculation at the bottom of your income statement. In this chapter, we do it, it's easy. In future chapters, it gets harder. Net income minus preferred dividends divided by the weighted average number of common shares outstanding equals our earnings per share. So let's do it with our net income. You can see it there. It's $80,000. So our net income is $80,000. Now, I've said here, assume common shares there's 10,000 common shares and there's 0 preferred shares. So what does 0 preferred shares means? It means there's 0 preferred dividends because we don't pay preferred dividends if we don't have preferred shares. And we're going to divide by the weighted average number of common shares outstanding. 10,000. Now, in future chapters, calculating that weighted average number of common shares outstanding is a complicated concept. This chapter, it's just going to be given as a number, so we'll just do it. So 80,000 minus 0 divided by 10,000 is 8. 8.0. Our net income earnings per share is $8. Because we had discontinued operations, shareholders also want to know, well, what's my earnings per share from like your continuing business? And it's going to be 360 minus 0 divided by 10,000. It's going to be 36. And what's the loss from discontinued operations? And it's 280 divided by 10,000. It's 28. So there's our earnings per share data, and we want to tell shareholders that, and that will appear on the face of income statements in intermediate accounting. So continuing down, there's one more thing, and it's a new concept, and it's kind of a complicated concept, and it's the concept of other comprehensive income. So OCI, you'll hear it for short, but other comprehensive income. And so I've prepared a second statement. Oh, I've already, this is trial 2 of this video. That's why there's red ink on it already. There's a new statement called the Statement of Comprehensive Income, and it's to track this other comprehensive income. So we have our net income, $80,000, and then there's other types of income that standard setters have said don't belong in net income. And the beautiful example, the example I like to give, is foreign currency translation under certain circumstances. So let's say we are a multinational company. Let's throw Target out. I know we've been talking a lot about Target, and we have a Japanese subsidiary, and that Japanese subsidiary is doing fantastic, and we love them, and we want to keep on having that Japanese subsidiary. It's not like Target in Canada, we're shutting it down. No, we're keeping it going. And let's further say that the yen had a terrible year. So the yen value went way, way down. Well, when we list that Japanese subsidiary's assets, because there it's our asset, we own the company, they're denominated in Japanese yen, they do their accounting in Japanese yen, we got to convert them to dollars. And when we convert them to dollars last year compared to this year, because the yen got weak, all those assets lost, right? We convert them to our dollar, and all of a sudden those yen denominated assets look way worse. And so we would have a loss on foreign currency translation. And in doing it, the company said, well, wait a second, I don't think that should count against me or for me in my profit. The fact that the yen is fluctuating, like, this year it's going to be a loss, next year it's going to be a gain, it screws up my earnings per share, which is an important number, and it screws up my net income because the yen's going to go up, the yen's going to go down. It's got nothing to do with me. Do I have to show it in my profit? And the standard setter said for certain things, the answer is no. You can call it other comprehensive income, and we even can put it on a different financial statement. It doesn't have to go on the income statement, although we'll talk about OCI and how we might disclose it in a minute. So here we have this foreign translation, in this case, a gain of 60,000. We put it in other. There's a whole schwack of things that might land in OCI, and we introduce a lot in this course. Another one is unrealized gain on debt investments. So let's say we bought a bunch of bonds as investments, right? We bought bonds, which are debt, as an investment, though. So we buy the bonds, and then the US Fed says interest rates are down. We're doing an interest rate cut. Well, the bonds we already own jump in value when that happens. The bonds will go up on a rate cut from the Fed. It's got nothing to do with us, right? It's not like it's part of our day-to-day business at Walmart or Target, the fact that we were just holding some bonds and they shot up in value because the Fed cut rates. And so as a consequence, again, companies have said, under certain circumstances, we don't wish to include this in our profit. Can we show it somewhere else? And why do I have to do that? Let's talk about the Japanese company example. So our Japanese assets all fall, right? So credit the asset value to make it go down. Well, you got to debit something on the other side, and normally you would be debiting loss on, holding loss on these assets. Well, in this case, we debit OCI to make OCI go down, or in the case of this one, there's a foreign currency translation gain, we would be crediting OCI, making it go up, because otherwise things don't balance, right? So we got to keep it in balance, and that's the account we use to keep things in balance. Other comprehensive income. So the statement's very simple. You just start with your net income. You say, what was my OCI changes? and what's my ending comprehensive income. Some companies do this as two statements, like I've done here. It's called the two-statement approach. Some companies do it in one statement, called the one-statement approach. I'll show you what that looks like. It's not too complicated. So it's the exact same income statement. We get down to net income. So we got discontinued operations. We get down to net income, and we just keep going. And we go, okay, well, what's my OCI stuff? And we get to comprehensive income. I've seen real companies do it as two statements. I've seen real famous companies do it as one statement. In our class, you will learn to do both, but you'll see, like, once you've done a couple, you're like, doesn't really matter. It's like, this is the least of our worries and the least of our problems. I almost wish that the standard setters would have just said, do it this way or do it that way, and not given the option, but there you have it. So welcome. I know it's chapter 4, but I feel like at the end of this video, I'm saying, welcome to the real intermediate accounting, right? This is not review. This is new material, and I think it's interesting, and I think it's challenging, and I'm so happy you're with me. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye. The next video in our series is right up here, and if you want a supercut of all of the videos in this series, that's the one down below.